It's time for what America really needs. Faith, family, fitness, freedom. From the home of Pikes Peak, here are your hosts Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Welcome to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host. He's flexing, wearing sunglasses inside. It's not even that bright. The one, the only. I don't even know. Do you have a nickname?
The Truth.
I don't think so.
The
Beast.
Truth. The Nightmare.
The Beast. The Mexican Chinchilla. Aaron Lujan.
Good morning.
I knew that one was not going to come out the way that I thought it was.
Who cares?
So we have this interesting dynamic. We're talking about the Daniel Penny case. Acquitted on all charges. Very interesting case. Some judicial misconduct. Some prosecutorial misconduct. Just, it became a circus.
Some legal shenanigans.
This is like, I mean, you know, we talked the other week and we referred to the Yemi Mobolade case as like a modern day Sanhedrin, and this just makes it that much worse. Right?
It's a bunch of malarkey.
This is like, they just do whatever they want, right? Yeah. And it's interesting because if you don't follow their wishes for, you know, what they want, if it doesn't fit the media narrative, they're going to come after you and try to charge you with murder.
Yeah.
Put you away for forever. And it's interesting. So Daniel Penny, if you don't know the story, former, I believe, Marine.
Yes, Marine.
Was on the subway in New York City.
23 years old.
Yeah. Homeless man comes, unhoused man, whatever's politically correct in this day and age. An unhoused man comes onto the subway. He's had confrontation with the police plenty of times in the past, has a history, declares that he's going to kill everybody on the subway. Daniel Penny steps in and subdues the gentleman, puts him in a chokehold. Multiple people jump up to hold him down to wait for police to respond. In the process of this whole thing, the man dies. Daniel Penny is then charged with homicide. In the process of this court case, they changed up the charges because they knew that they were in a losing battle. There's no way that they were going to convict this poor dude of homicide. And on goes the circus that we call our judicial system. Now, I think this has a ton of biblical implications. I think this has a ton of implications socially in our world today. I mean, what are we telling people when they are faced with a situation where they should step in and help, right? Here's a guy. He's faced with this situation. Guy comes on, says he's going to kill everybody on the train. He decides to step up and help. If you're an everyday American citizen right now, you're going, maybe I should think twice about stepping in because I might be charged with homicide.
Well, I think this case just draws the classic lines of division, right? So you have the partisan left calling out the race narrative, Jordan Neely, black man, murdered at the hands of a white man, right? And then you have the political right calling for self-defense, calling for masculinity, calling for law and order. And so it's drawing classical lines of division, but the case, I think, becomes more nuanced when you take into consideration self-defense laws, the mental health aspect of the issue. So it's a complex case, but I think overall this became a larger national media story because it was politically convenient. Go ahead.
But it's interesting, right? We have this dynamic at play. We have multiple breaking stories all at the same time. And so on one side, Daniel Penny's acquitted. On the other side, a tip from a random person to a McDonald's employee in Pennsylvania clues law enforcement into the suspected murderer of the CEO of United Healthcare.
Plot twist, what if the McDonald's employee was Donald Trump?
Oh, it could have happened.
That'd be
it
wild.
was a McDonald's in Pennsylvania.
And Trump
We don't know if it was the same one.
Trump is a McDonald's burger flipper.
Boosting some McDonald's stock here for a second time. I don't know.
Maybe McDonald's is behind this.
But here we have the governor of Pennsylvania, who, by the way, could care less that an attempted assassination occurred in his state, comes out and says, we want to praise the Good Samaritan who saw something and said something. but then at the same time, we're upset that somebody saw something and did something in the subway of New York City.
Well, you're supposed to be a government rat. You're not supposed to be a charitable, masculine man who protects the innocent.
Snitches get stitches and end up in ditches.
For
Just
sure.
do the job yourself.
For sure.
Right? Take down the guy that wants to take down the entire train.
Hashtag real talk.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Now, there's some jokes in there, but let's step back for a second. Not only was Daniel Penny subduing this individual, but there was African Americans that were helping to hold this individual down and Hispanics that were helping to hold this individual down.
And the victims, I believe, or the potential would have been victims were
all races.
All races.
All races. And the jury was made up of white men and women, African Americans, Hispanics.
But wasn't it predominantly black jury?
I think so. I'd have to look again.
Okay.
But also a black woman testifies who was on the subway and thanks Daniel Penny in the middle of the trial. Says, thank you for saving us. And then afterwards, after he's acquitted, the Black Lives Matters people call for their own vigilantes that maybe they need to take out some white folks. They said this. This is like a serious threat. I mean, the leader of the Black Lives Matters movement, I don't remember what his name is, big dude. Where's the prosecution there? I mean, this guy just on live television just claimed that he was going to conduct or seek out violence against white men.
Well, we know black liberals have a blank check today.
Well, yeah, they can do whatever they want.
Sure.
Except kill the CEO of United Healthcare.
Of course. So, yeah, there's a lot of cherries to pick out of this story, too. Masculinity is on trial. Biblical charity is on trial. Whiteness is on trial. There's a lot on trial.
I think it's interesting, right? So Jesus heals on the Sabbath. Pharisees get upset. All of a sudden, Jesus, you can't heal on the Sabbath, right? Remember that story?
Yeah.
And then we have this case of the Sanhedrin in Luke chapter 10, parable of the Good Samaritan, starting at verse 25. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, what is written in the law? What is your reading of it? So he answered and said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you have answered rightly. Do this and you will live. But he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Then Jesus answered and said, certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothes, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at that place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. It's a commandment, right? Go and do likewise. It's not like go and do it once. Go and do it continually, right? This is an ongoing, continuous. And this goes back to the same situation of the letter of the law versus the interpretation or
the spirit
living
of the law.
The spirit of the law, yeah. Right? Living the law.
Sure.
And it was the same story when it came to Jesus healing on the Sabbath. He goes, it's about the spirit of the law. You're taking the Sabbath out of context. And the same goes here, right? Like, why did the priest, now this is a hypothetical story that sometimes I think people want to pretend like this was actually like some true story that Jesus was telling. He was given a parable. Probably didn't actually happen this exact way. But we could be quick to understand why the priest and the Levite might have been passed by, right? They're following Jewish law, Jewish custom. They were clean. This is an unclean body, potentially dead, stripped naked. Can't touch them. They'd be unclean, unable to perform their duties in the temple. So what do? They pass them by. Like, this is a story of the difference between the letter of the law and, as you said, the spirit of the law, right? And there's more to it than that, because we have a class system. We have the difference between the Levite and the Samaritan, and the Samaritans being kind of lower class.
Impure, according to Jewish tradition.
Yeah, going all the way back to the days of Babylon and all of that. And so there's that as well, which you could compare to this case in terms of the race issue, right? This race and class issue. But here's Daniel Penny, who, regardless of who was on that train, it didn't matter who was on that train. It didn't matter their race, didn't matter their creed, didn't matter their religion. He stepped up to help.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped up to do something.
Right.
As we are called to do. Go and do likewise. Right? And Jesus says to this lawyer, who is a member of the Sanhedrin, that you are to go and do likewise. That basically it's not about the letter of the law per se, or your personal interpretation of the law. You're trying to get out of it, right? Don't try to justify yourself. And he tried to justify himself, and we see that when he said, well, who's my neighbor? That's a justification. He's saying, well, would I really need to help this dude? Like, it's time to stop trying to justify this in the same facet.
And another aspect that I haven't heard much in the media is, what if it's both ways? What if Mr. Penny acted within the context of the spirit of the law in good faith to protect innocent people, because allegedly Jordan Neely was a well-known vagrant on the New York subways, claiming that he was ready to die and threatening people. So Mr. Penny, in good faith, attempted to subdue him. But in a little bit of research into this case, New York state law would consider a 5-minute chokehold second-degree manslaughter. So what if I were to suggest here today that Mr. Penny acted in good faith, but violated the law because he subdued this gentleman too long, and therefore is guilty of second-degree manslaughter and should receive the consequences of his crimes? You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah. So essentially, if you're going to step in and save a train full of people, make sure that you first set your iPhone timer for 5 minutes, and when it goes off, you need to let go.
No, I think that there is a certain point, and I'm a former wrestler. There's a certain point where you instinctively know. It's like going back to mixed martial arts, the whole notion of tapping out. You know when you know. Listen, 5 minutes seems egregious.
But I'll tell you what. If Daniel Penny is obviously strong enough and understands enough what he's doing, okay? I'm a very avid UFC watcher. I love mixed martial arts. And I love jiu-jitsu, and I love watching jiu-jitsu. It does not take 5 minutes to put somebody unconscious in a chokehold.
So what are you suggesting?
That Daniel Penny was probably not using it to cut off circulation or to cause him to essentially black out or go unconscious.
So then the burden on the prosecution is to prove that the chokehold did in fact obstruct airway.
Anybody that understands jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts, would understand that if he wanted to put this guy out in a chokehold, he would do it in far less than 5 minutes. Sure. This guy would have been unconscious in 10, 20 seconds. Right? And so what he's probably doing is managing the threat, which is what we're also inclined to do. Right?
Sure.
And so you have to manage the threat. In the state of Colorado, right, when the threat ceases, your offensive action should also cease. So in many states, if somebody breaks into your house and you have a gun, if they see the gun and start to retreat, you can't shoot them in the back. Right?
But couldn't one argue that there's levels and degrees of a chokehold, that there can be an instantaneous 5-second, you're done, good night, and there could also be...
But I think you would have to argue the fact that did he cross a line, or did he maintain the chokehold because they could not continue to subdue this gentleman? It goes back to in a way, somewhat of the George Floyd case, because we also haven't taken into account drugs.
I'm not defending the prosecution of Mr. Penny. I'm trying to be respectful of New York state law, because this is being tried in a court of law, not in the court of public opinion.
I understand. And it goes back to the spirit of the law thing as well, right? Like when so much of it is ethics, right? So much of it is ethics. So much of it is a personal decision. At the end of the day, when you're in the heat of the moment and somebody's intentions are well, right? Your stupidity of your legislature, which the New York legislature is definitely not the smartest of the bunch.
No, they're woke and broke.
And same with here. Like, we are talking about legislatures that have overstepped their bounds on numerous occasions, that try to legislate literally every single action, that those laws may not actually even make sense. We still have laws in the book that, it's not legal to jump rope backwards in some states. Like, there's some really stupid laws on the book. Now, are we ever going to ticket somebody for that? Probably not.
Unless they're a Republican.
Yeah. You jump roped on a Monday at 3:00.
Sure.
You can only do it at 4:00 on a Tuesday. Like, this is the stupidity of our legislatures and of our city councils and anybody else that makes laws or ordinances. Like, we have some really stupid laws in the book. I don't know the exact law in New York. I don't know if there's like literally a time frame of 5 minutes, or they're just claiming that 5 minutes is excessive. But at the end of the day, this is a gentleman that stepped in to help a train full of people and continued to act until that threat was secure, which is what he was trained to do. That's what we're all trained to do. If you carry a weapon, if you carry a firearm, you continue until the threat has stopped. Right? That's how you're trained. And so if Daniel Penny had continued to subdue this guy waiting for police, he probably did it in such a reason. Like, he probably had a reason for it.
Look,
now,
go ahead.
Now, when we go back to the case and we're making a biblical case in a way, when we go back to the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, we're not called to try to justify ourselves. And we're also not called to necessarily go, well, you know what? The time's up. So time to let go. Go ahead and kill him. It's been 5 minutes. Police didn't show up. Maybe if we didn't defund the police, we'd have police on the subway.
Yeah, well, I would say that street justice would argue that he needed to kill Jordan Neely. I mean, in the old days, call it the Wild West days, Jordan Neely would have been justified to have been killed. I mean, you go into an environment of children and women and you start claiming you're going to start killing people. Where I'm from, back in the day, that would have just been a call for, you to go meet with Jesus.
Well, I mean, look, what happens? Let's take this back for a second. Jordan Neely doesn't die, right? What happens? Police come, they put him into custody. The jails are probably overcrowded. He didn't actually harm anybody. They probably just release him back on the streets the next day with no mental help, no nothing. Nothing's changed. He's still delusional. He's still threatening violence, and he gets back on the subway again. And how many times do we wait until all of a sudden this guy actually does something and hurts somebody?
Yeah.
Which he had in the past, to the best of my knowledge. This is not a one-time offender. Like, this is a guy that is a serious threat to that train or to that subway.
Yeah, it's reported that he was well known as a big disturbance on those trains.
We're going to take a brief time out. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation on the Daniel Penny case. Hang with us.
Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, is now registering for school year sports programs. Full Armor is a multi-sport teaching and training organization with homeschool options available. All of Full Armor sports coaches are certified and experts in their field. Full Armor's coaches combine for over 500 years of coaching experience. They will help your kids gain fundamental skills, the concepts of teamwork, essential to being successful throughout their lives. Multiple sports options are available now, from swimming, softball and volleyball, to powerlifting and youth MMA. The faith-based approach to making sports fun and productive are a great choice for your kids at Full Armor Sports Teams. Learn more at fullarmorsportsteams.com.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host, Aaron Lujan.
안녕하세요.
Matthew West not here. He was heading east. Don't know where he went. Somewhere in the plains.
Instead, we got James. We got me.
You got James. James Fiddler.
James Fiddler.
What up,
He
James?
did not leave the golden fiddle at the devil's feet.
No, I beat him.
Or the devil left the golden fiddle at Johnny/James's feet.
Yeah. I went down. Well, yeah.
You went down
I
to
went
Georgia?
down to Georgia, met the devil there. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's how that song goes.
Yeah.
It's a great song. Who came up with that? Like, who came
Charlie
up with
Daniels,
this
I
idea?
think.
Like, I know Charlie Daniels did it, but like, Charlie Daniels probably didn't write the song. He probably had a songwriter. Like, but who came up with this idea? Like, Johnny and a fiddle?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Oh,
Sir
Ordained.
Isaac Newton.
I don't know what to tell you. All right, so we have this story. We're talking about Daniel Penny, the Good Samaritan. What's your take, James?
So it sounds to me.
He's trying to sound like Matthew
I
West.
know, it totally
It's
Matt
great.
West.
I like it.
Sounds to me.
I think the guy's justified. I agree with you. However, on some of your guys' points, like the whole Wild West thing,
You don't think we should take back justice into the hands of the people?
maybe not. Maybe not. Some people are idiots. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I get you. I think that there's an interesting dynamic, right? Like, we have essentially stripped the death penalty away, and there's really no threat of the death penalty anymore in most states. And even if we have a death penalty in a state, there's no real threat that you're actually going to get it. But think about, like, if we just started hanging people on the streets again, like, would we see a drastic decrease in crime? And in the countries where if you steal something, you get your hand chopped off, there's no theft.
Ask
People
El
don't
Salvador.
steal stuff.
Ask El Salvador.
Okay, well, in the countries where they chop your hand off for stealing stuff, they also, like Middle Eastern countries, I assume is what we're talking about. They're also just
even in the
killing-
South, even in a lot Latin nations, they do it as well.
Which Latin nations?
What do you just mentioned El
Well,
Salvador?
I was bringing up El Salvador because they have that new president who basically took the military, rounded up all the MS-13 gang members, and crime is down like triple percentage points right now. Crime is down.
Okay.
No one's messing around anymore.
Do they chop off hands for stealing?
They don't
in-
chop off hands, but they have some.
I know that there's some South American countries that do,
They got some serious prisons going on.
but yes, Sharia law in a lot of the Middle East countries
Yeah.
that is a part of it. Yeah,
I think the death penalty should be reinstated for certain crimes, undoubtedly, yeah. But it's a slippery slope, because if we are chopping people's hands off for stealing stuff, what comes next? You know, you
I
lied.
get you.
Let's cut your tongue out.
I get you. And in the Wild West, right, we didn't really have a judicial system, just like we don't really have a judicial system now, right? But at the end of the day, I think when we look at Daniel Penny, this is not a guy that like hopped on the train that morning looking to do justice, like looking to be some superhero. I don't think this was like, I'm Batman.
The fight came to him that morning.
The fight did come. Like, this is a guy that just stepped up to defend people on a train.
As all men should.
I don't think he had a superhero complex. I don't think he was out looking for a fight.
Well, I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, but it's redemptive of me because I've been watching so many videos the last, call it 5 years, of these abhorrent people just acting a fool, having their way with innocent people, and watching alleged so-called men stand by, staring at their phones and cowardly walking away. And for once, we have a real red-blooded alpha male who's a former, or always, once a Marine, always a Marine, step up and take care of business. So this is redemption for a lot of people that have been longing for a return of masculinity in the culture.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when we look at Samaritans and stepping up and wanting and wishing for people to step up, we have, in a lot of ways, a law enforcement situation where either there just isn't enough law enforcement, or law enforcement no longer feels like they're allowed to do their job because they're on the chopping block too, right? Just like Daniel Penny. Anything that they do, any use of force at this point is like overanalyzed to an extreme, and police officers are finding themselves in jail for using force. And so we have a situation where we are discouraging police from using any force because their entire lives might be upended. And now we have a situation where if you're an average day civilian trying to protect a subway full of civilians, that if you use any sort of force or you try to step in, your entire life might be over. Like that's the lesson that is being taught to police. That's the lesson that's being taught to everyday civilians. So at the end of the day, what happens? Do we just allow people to do whatever they want? Because right now we're going to end up in a state of like anarchy. because there's no enforcement at all. And instead of the judicial system prosecuting those that have committed crimes, they're prosecuting innocent people left and right for political reasons.
Or for selling milk.
Or in the case of Yemi, not prosecuting somebody for political reasons.
Sometimes prosecuting people over a squirrel.
Listen, we're fighting a
That
war.
poor squirrel.
We're fighting a war with cultural subverters. And the reason this Daniel Penny story is front and center in the national media is because they want to put masculinity on trial. They want to put good men on trial. They want to demonize our natural instincts to protect and defend the innocent. That's exactly what this is about.
Yeah, this is an attack on Christianity. It's an attack on masculinity. It's an attack on doing the right thing.
So we can sit here and talk about the nuances of the case and the judicial system. We all know that the judicial system is weaponized. We all know that it's put into effect when it's convenient for the oligarchs. And this is nothing more than just a media hit job.
It's silencing the people. It's saying that, you cannot overstep the bounds of the government. Like, this is government territory. We do the policing, not you, everyday American citizens.
We don't need weapons of war on the street. We have the police.
But if you see a guy that doesn't have a unibrow, even though that's who we think we're looking for in a McDonald's in Pennsylvania, make sure to let the staff at McDonald's know about the guy so that they can call 911.
Yeah.
But let's forget that we had an attempted assassination of a presidential candidate in your state.
Totally chill.
Oh, wait, those people saw something and said something, and then nobody from the law enforcement did anything about it. It's a jacked up situation we live in.
The Secret Service and the law enforcement in Pennsylvania saw a guy on the roof and did not say something.
No, everybody that was in that audience that day saw him,
said something, and nothing happened.
And they did nothing.
Right.
But my gosh, got to protect that,
Jordan Levy.
United Healthcare
yes.
CEO.
Oh, he's one of them.
Well, this has been Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom, 100.7 The Word. Check us out, faithfamilyfit.org for more content. Join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. for more fun and entertainment. Have a blessed day.
Peace.